6:47 a.m. Manchester, England. The sound of splintering wood echoes through a £1 million mansion as armed police storm through the front door. The bedroom is empty. The bed hasn't been slept in. And there's the sound of running water coming from the bathroom upstairs. What investigators found in that bathroom would expose a criminal empire so sophisticated, it had been operating undetected for over a decade. Because when they kicked down the bathroom door, they didn't just find Aram Shibani frantically trying to flush documents down the toilet. They found him destroying evidence of a £5 million operation that had fooled every bank, every financial institution, and every security system designed to catch exactly this type of criminal. But here's the part that will haunt you. As officers handcuffed Shibani, water still running, shredded documents floating in the toilet bowl, he looked directly at the lead investigator and said something that would keep them awake for months. "You have no idea how deep this goes. You think you've caught me, but you've only found what I wanted you to find." And he was right. Because what they discovered in the next 72 hours would prove that Shibani wasn't just a criminal. He was the architect of a financial invisibility system so perfect, he had been living as a ghost who owned 9 properties, drove luxury cars, and traveled internationally, all while officially having zero income since 2014. The documents floating in that toilet? They contained cryptocurrency wallet codes worth £1.5 million. The encrypted phone buzzing on the bathroom counter? It was receiving messages from criminal networks across 3 continents who had no idea their money laundering lifeline was about to disappear. And the most terrifying part of all, those 72 hours of investigation revealed that Shibani's arrest wouldn't just shut down one criminal operation. It would collapse an entire ecosystem of crime that stretched from the streets of Manchester to international drug cartels most people have never heard of. What I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about the person living next to you. Right now, as you're watching this video, there could be someone in your neighborhood driving a Bentley to their $1 million home, who officially doesn't exist in any financial system on Earth. For 10 years, Aram Shibani was a ghost who lived like a king. 9 properties, luxury cars, international first-class travel, all while being completely invisible to every bank, every tax authority, every financial institution that should have been watching. But here's the part that will keep you awake tonight. When authorities finally caught him, they discovered he wasn't just hiding money. He was operating a criminal empire so sophisticated that it makes Hollywood heist movies look like children's games. We're talking about forged identities so perfect they fooled major banks, cryptocurrency operations that could disappear millions with a single click, and a family conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of international finance. And the most terrifying part? If it wasn't for one tiny mistake, one single digital breadcrumb he left behind, Aram Shibani would still be out there right now, living in plain sight, completely undetected. This case will shatter everything you think you know about financial security, family loyalty, and the invisible criminal empires operating in your own backyard. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to discover about the Aram Shibani case will change how you see the world forever. We've been investigating criminal cases for years, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared us for what we discovered about Aram Shibani. This isn't just another crime story. This is a blueprint for how someone can become completely invisible while living in plain sight. This is proof that our entire financial system has cracks so massive, entire criminal empires can slip through them undetected. And here's what's going to blow your mind. Everything Shibani did, the forged documents, the cryptocurrency fortress, the fake identities, it's all completely replicable. Right now. Today. By anyone with enough intelligence and zero moral compass. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into a case so twisted, so brilliantly executed, and so terrifyingly close to home that you'll never look at your wealthy neighbors the same way again. Welcome to Crime Scene Chronicles. Today, we're investigating the man who proved that in the modern world, you can be anyone you want to be, as long as you're willing to pay the price in blood. Here's a question that will haunt you. What does it take to steal someone's entire life? Because that's exactly what Aram Shibani did. Not once. Not twice. Multiple times. Since 2014, this man had zero legitimate income. I'm not talking about hiding money or underreporting earnings. I'm talking about complete financial invisibility. No job. No business. No inheritance. No lottery winnings. Nothing. And yet, he was acquiring properties faster than most legitimate millionaires. 9 separate properties across multiple locations. Each purchase required extensive financial verification, credit checks, proof of income documentation that would make your mortgage broker sweat. But here's where this gets absolutely insane. Shibani didn't just fool small-time lenders or sketchy back-alley financiers. He extracted £1.7 million from major financial institutions. Banks with billion-dollar security budgets. Mortgage companies with teams of investigators whose entire job is to spot exactly this type of fraud. And they all said yes. But the properties were just the beginning. While banks were writing him million-pound checks, Shibani was building something else entirely. Something that would make those property purchases look like pocket change. He was constructing identities so perfect, so completely fabricated, that he could walk into any institution in the country and become whoever he needed to be. And the most chilling part? The person you know as Eram Shibani might not even be his real name. Let me paint you a picture of what financial invisibility actually looks like in practice. Imagine waking up tomorrow and needing to prove who you are. Bank statements? Gone. Employment records? Erased. Tax returns? Non-existent. Social security contributions? What contributions? That's the reality Shibani created for himself. Complete financial amnesia. But instead of being broke and homeless like any normal person in that situation would be, he was living in luxury properties, driving cars worth more than most people's annual salary, and traveling internationally like some kind of mysterious billionaire. The question that haunted investigators wasn't just how he was doing it. It was who else was he doing it with. Because operations this sophisticated don't happen in isolation. They require networks. Connections. People on the inside who can make documents disappear and identities appear. If you think this is as deep as this rabbit hole goes, smash that subscribe button and hit the like button right now, because we haven't even started talking about the cryptocurrency fortress. And if this is blowing your mind already, share this with someone who needs to know how vulnerable our financial systems really are. But before we dive into his digital empire, I need to tell you about the moment investigators realized they weren't just dealing with a financial fraud. They were dealing with a criminal mastermind who had weaponized the very systems designed to protect us. And the worst part? He was teaching others how to do the same thing. What I'm about to reveal will make every crypto investor watching this video question everything they think they know about digital security. £1.5 million in cryptocurrency. Hidden in digital wallets that exist only as code. Protected by encryption so sophisticated that even government agencies struggle to crack it. But that's not the terrifying part. The terrifying part is that Shibani built this digital fortress while simultaneously running old-school document forgery operations. Do you understand what this means? Most criminals specialize. They're either tech-savvy cryptocurrency operators or traditional document forgers. They work in the digital world or the physical world. Shibani mastered both. He had encrypted phones that could self-destruct with a single command. Cryptocurrency wallets that could transfer millions across international borders in seconds. Digital identities that could be activated and destroyed at will. While you and I are struggling to remember our online banking passwords, this man was operating a financial empire that existed simultaneously in the physical and digital realms. But here's what kept investigators awake at night. Every time they thought they had found all of Shibani's assets, they discovered another layer. Another wallet. Another encrypted drive. Another digital vault containing evidence of transactions they never knew existed. And then they made a discovery that changed everything. Buried deep in the blockchain, hidden among thousands of legitimate transactions, they found a pattern. A digital signature that connected Shibani's cryptocurrency operations to something much larger. Something that made his £5 million drug empire look like a corner store operation. They weren't just looking at one criminal. They were looking at a node in a network so vast, so internationally connected, that shutting down Shibani was like pulling a single thread from a tapestry that stretched across continents. Let me explain how sophisticated this cryptocurrency operation really was. Most people think crypto is anonymous, but that's not entirely true. Every transaction is recorded on the blockchain forever. The trick is making those transactions impossible to trace back to real identities. Shibani had solved this problem using a technique called transaction tumbling, essentially washing digital money through hundreds of different wallets and exchanges before it reached its final destination. It's like taking a dollar bill, cutting it into microscopic pieces, mailing each piece to a different address around the world, and then having them all reassembled into clean money on the other side. But here's where it gets really terrifying. The encryption methods Shibani was using weren't available to regular criminals. This was military-grade technology. The kind of stuff that requires connections to people who work in very specific, very classified industries. Which raised the question, who was teaching him these techniques? And more importantly, how many others had learned the same methods? Investigators began to suspect that Shibani's operation wasn't just about hiding his own money. He was running a service, teaching other criminals how to disappear their assets using the same techniques. A cryptocurrency laundering school, if you will. Subscribe now and hit that like button if you want to find out how deep this network goes, and make sure to share this video because the family connection we're about to explore will blow your mind and everyone needs to know how these criminal dynasties actually operate. But before we dive into the international conspiracy, we need to talk about the moment this case stopped being about money and started being about blood. Because what investigators discovered about Shibani's family would redefine everything they thought they knew about loyalty, trust, and the lengths people will go to protect their own. Manchester Airport. Tuesday morning. Travelers rushing through security, checking phones, grabbing coffee before their flights. And then the arrest that changed everything. Shibani's mother. Handcuffed. Led away by investigators who had been watching her every move for months. But here's what the news reports didn't tell you. This wasn't a random arrest. This wasn't guilt by association. Investigators had evidence that Shibani's mother wasn't just aware of his criminal empire, she was actively participating in it. Think about what this means. 4 years, this woman watched her son acquire property after property, car after car, traveling internationally, living a lifestyle that would require millions in legitimate income. And not only did she never ask questions, she helped him hide the money. But the mother's arrest was just the beginning. Because when investigators started pulling at the family thread, they discovered something that made international headlines look like local news. The Shibani operation wasn't just a family business. It was a multi-generational criminal enterprise with roots stretching back decades. Documents found in raids revealed communications between family members discussing money laundering techniques, property acquisitions, and cryptocurrency transfers. These weren't casual conversations between mother and son. These were business meetings. And here's the part that will make you question every family you know with unexplained wealth. Investigators believe the mother's arrest at Manchester Airport wasn't random. She was attempting to flee the country with evidence that would have exposed criminal networks spanning multiple continents. What was she carrying? Who was she meeting? And most importantly, how many other families are operating similar enterprises right now, hiding in plain sight, with criminal operations so sophisticated that they make the Shibani case look like amateur hour? But let me tell you what really disturbed investigators about this family dynamic. The mother wasn't just a reluctant participant being coerced by her son. Phone records and financial documents revealed that she was often the one initiating criminal activities. She was the one suggesting new money laundering techniques. She was the one with connections to international criminal networks. Shibani didn't corrupt his mother. His mother had been running criminal operations long before he got involved. Think about the implications of this. How many families look perfectly normal from the outside while running sophisticated criminal enterprises behind closed doors? How many mothers are teaching their children not just right from wrong, but how to avoid getting caught? And here's the most disturbing part of all. Investigators found evidence suggesting that the family had been grooming other relatives for involvement in their operations. Cousins, nephews, even family friends were being slowly introduced to increasingly sophisticated criminal activities. It wasn't just a family business. It was a criminal dynasty in the making. But the family connections were just the tip of the iceberg. Because when investigators started mapping out everyone connected to the Shibani operation, they discovered something that would keep them awake for months. They weren't just dealing with a family of criminals. They were dealing with a network that stretched across international borders, connected to some of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the world. Subscribe to Crime Scene Chronicles now, smash that like button, and share this investigation, because the international connections we're about to expose will redefine how you think about organized crime, and your friends need to see this too. But before we dive into the global network, I need to tell you about the moment investigators realized they weren't just dealing with a family business. They were dismantling something that connected to criminal organizations in countries most people can't even pronounce. And the evidence they found would suggest that Shibani's operation was just one small piece of a criminal empire so vast, so well organized, that it makes traditional organized crime families look like corner store gangs. Here's where the Shibani story becomes a masterclass in how modern law enforcement operates when they are truly terrified by what they've discovered. Because investigators didn't just arrest Shibani and call it a day. They launched what can only be described as a surgical dismantling operation. Asset by asset. Property by property. Cryptocurrency wallet by cryptocurrency wallet. Bank account by bank account. They weren't just building a case. They were erasing an empire. The final tally? A £5 million drug empire that had been operating undetected for over a decade. But let me break down what £5 million in illegal drug operations actually means, because the numbers tell a story that will chill you to the bone. This wasn't some street-level operation selling drugs to teenagers. £5 million represents sophisticated distribution networks, international supply chains, customer bases numbering in the thousands, and regular revenue streams that had been generating profits for years. To put this in perspective, most legitimate small businesses struggle to generate £5 million in revenue over their entire existence. Shibani was generating £5 million in illegal profits while maintaining complete financial invisibility. And here's what should terrify everyone watching this video. Shibani ran this operation for over 10 years without detection. 9 properties. Multiple luxury vehicles. International travel. Financial institutions approved millions in mortgages based on his forged documentation. Every single system designed to catch exactly this type of criminal activity failed. But the most shocking part wasn't the scale of his operation. It was what investigators discovered when they started mapping out his criminal network. Shibani wasn't just running a drug empire. He was operating a full-service criminal organization that provided money laundering services, document forgery, cryptocurrency tumbling, and identity creation for other criminal enterprises. Think about what this means. While law enforcement agencies were focusing on traditional drug dealers and street-level operations, Shibani was building the infrastructure that made modern crime possible. He was the criminal equivalent of Amazon Web Services, providing the back-end technology and services that allowed dozens of other criminal operations to function. And here's the part that kept investigators awake at night. When they finally arrested Shibani and shut down his operation, they didn't just dismantle one criminal enterprise. They disrupted an entire ecosystem of criminal activity that stretched across multiple countries and involved hundreds of other criminals. The ripple effects were immediate and global. Drug operations in 3 different countries suddenly lost their money laundering capabilities. Document forgery operations across Europe found themselves without their primary supplier. Cryptocurrency tumbling services that had been operating for years suddenly went dark. Shibani wasn't just a criminal. He was the criminal equivalent of critical infrastructure. If you're starting to understand the true scope of what we're dealing with here, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Scene Chronicles, hit that like button to help us expose more cases like this, and share this video because what we're about to discuss will change how you think about crime in the digital age. But even after his arrest, conviction, and 37-year prison sentence, the story didn't end. Courts ordered Shibani to repay £3.5 million or face an additional decade in prison. But here's what's truly terrifying about this. Even from behind bars, with all his known assets seized, investigators believed Shibani still controlled millions in hidden cryptocurrency and other assets. Which raises the question, was the £5 million empire they dismantled everything, or just the part they could find? And if a man sitting in a prison cell can still control millions in criminal assets, what does that say about the true scope of modern criminal enterprises? Here's the question that will haunt every financial expert, law enforcement officer, and ordinary citizen who learns about the Shibani case. If someone with no legitimate income since 2014 could acquire 9 properties, multiple luxury vehicles, and live an international lifestyle while running a £5 million criminal operation completely undetected, how many others are doing the exact same thing right now? The Shibani case revealed systematic vulnerabilities in our financial infrastructure that are genuinely terrifying. Let me walk you through exactly how these systems failed, because understanding these failures is the only way to protect yourself from becoming a victim of similar operations. First, mortgage companies approved £1.7 million in loans based on documents that were completely fabricated. We're not talking about minor embellishments or creative accounting. These were entirely fake documents created by professional forgery operations. But here's what's truly disturbing. These weren't sophisticated forgeries that required expert analysis to detect. Many of the documents contained obvious inconsistencies that should have been caught by basic verification procedures. The companies that approved these mortgages either didn't perform adequate due diligence, or they performed due diligence and approved the loans anyway. Second, banking institutions processed hundreds of transactions without adequate scrutiny of funding sources. Shibani was moving money through legitimate banking systems using accounts tied to identities that didn't exist. Think about what this means for your own financial security. If criminals can create fake identities sophisticated enough to fool major banks, what's to stop them from creating fake identities that look like you? Third, property registration systems allowed Shibani to acquire 9 separate properties without triggering any red flags about the source of his funding or the legitimacy of his identity. These properties weren't hidden in shell companies or obscure offshore jurisdictions. They were registered under names that should have been easily verifiable but weren't. And here's the most terrifying part of all. Shibani wasn't even trying to be subtle. 9 properties. Luxury cars. International travel. This was a lifestyle that practically screamed, "Investigate me immediately." And yet, it took over a decade for authorities to catch him. Which brings us to the question that should keep everyone awake at night. If someone this visible could operate undetected for 10 years, what about the criminals who are actually trying to stay hidden? The Shibani case forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality about the world we live in. Our financial systems, our identity verification processes, our law enforcement capabilities, they're all designed to catch criminals who make mistakes. But what happens when criminals don't make mistakes? What happens when criminals are smarter than the systems designed to catch them? And most importantly, what happens when criminals start teaching other criminals how to exploit these same vulnerabilities? If you're beginning to understand why this case is so much more than just another crime story, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Scene Chronicles, give this video a like if it's opened your eyes, and share it with someone who thinks they understand financial security, because the implications we're about to discuss will change how you think about security, privacy, and trust in the modern world. But there's one more aspect of this case that we haven't discussed yet. Something that makes all of these vulnerabilities exponentially more dangerous. The technology revolution that has transformed how we live, work, and interact has also transformed how criminals operate. And the Shibani case is just the beginning. £1.5 million in cryptocurrency wasn't just part of Shibani's operation, it represents a fundamental shift in the nature of crime itself. And if you think you understand cryptocurrency because you've heard about Bitcoin, you're not even close to grasping what we're dealing with here. Traditional money laundering requires physical movement of cash, complex banking relationships, geographic limitations, and paper trails that can be followed by investigators. Cryptocurrency eliminates every single one of these constraints. With the right knowledge and tools, £1.5 million can be moved anywhere in the world in minutes. It can be converted between dozens of different cryptocurrencies to obscure transaction trails. It can be stored in wallets that exist only as mathematical equations. And here's the terrifying part. Shibani understood cryptocurrency better than most law enforcement agencies understood traditional financial crime. While investigators were still learning how to trace bank transfers, Shibani was operating multi-wallet cryptocurrency tumbling operations that could make millions disappear into the digital equivalent of thin air. But let me explain exactly how sophisticated his cryptocurrency operation really was, because the technical details reveal something that should terrify anyone who keeps money in digital form. Shibani wasn't just buying and selling cryptocurrency like a regular investor. He was operating what's called a mixing service, essentially a digital money laundering operation that could take dirty cryptocurrency from dozens of different criminal enterprises and return clean, untraceable digital currency. Think of it like a criminal car wash, but instead of washing cars, he was washing digital money. Criminal organizations from around the world would send their dirty cryptocurrency to Shibani's operation, and it would come back completely clean and impossible to trace. And here's what kept investigators awake at night. Shibani's mixing service was so sophisticated that it was being used by other criminal organizations that had no idea who was running it. He was providing cryptocurrency laundering services to criminals who were trying to hide money from crimes he didn't even know about. But the most chilling aspect of Shibani's cryptocurrency operation wasn't its sophistication. It was its accessibility. Everything he was doing, the wallet creation, the transaction tumbling, the identity obfuscation, it's all available to anyone with basic technical knowledge and complete disregard for the law. Which means that right now, as you're watching this video, there could be dozens of other operations just like Shibani's running in complete secrecy. But here's where Shibani's sophistication also became his weakness. Every cryptocurrency transaction is permanently recorded on the blockchain. While individual transactions might be anonymous, the patterns they create over time tell a story. And investigators learned to read that story. What Shibani didn't realize was that his mixing service was creating digital fingerprints that were actually more traceable than traditional financial transactions. Every time he tumbled cryptocurrency, he was creating connections between different wallets that could be mapped and analyzed. It was like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, except the breadcrumbs were made of unbreakable mathematical proofs. This is the kind of cutting-edge crime analysis we cover regularly on Crime Scene Chronicles. If you're not already subscribed, you're missing out on some fascinating content that could protect you from becoming a victim of similar operations. Make sure to like this video and share it with someone who needs to understand these threats. But Shibani's cryptocurrency holdings revealed something even more disturbing than his technical sophistication. The scale of his operation suggested connections to international criminal networks that made his individual operation look like a small business. If Shibani, operating essentially as a one-man criminal enterprise, could accumulate £1.5 million in cryptocurrency while providing services to other criminal organizations, what are organized criminal syndicates with hundreds of members and unlimited resources capable of? And that brings us to the final, most important question that the Shibani case forces us to confront. The Eram Shibani case isn't really about Eram Shibani. It's about the fundamental transformation of crime in the digital age. It's about vulnerabilities in systems we trust with our most sensitive information. It's about threats that are evolving faster than our ability to defend against them. Consider the timeline. Shibani operated undetected from 2014 to 2024. That's a full decade of sophisticated criminal activity happening in parallel to legitimate society. 9 properties in legitimate real estate markets. Mortgage approvals from regulated financial institutions. Luxury vehicle purchases from authorized dealers. International travel through official airports and border controls. At every step, Shibani interacted with legitimate systems and institutions. At every step, those systems failed to detect what should have been obvious red flags. And at every step, he was perfecting techniques that could be replicated by anyone with similar criminal intentions. But here's what makes the Shibani case truly significant: it's not an anomaly. It's a preview. The techniques Shibani used, document forgery, identity theft, cryptocurrency laundering, digital asset concealment, they're not disappearing with his arrest. They are spreading. Right now, there are online forums where criminals share detailed instructions for replicating Shibani's methods. There are cryptocurrency mixing services that operate with even more sophistication than his operation. There are document forgery operations that have learned from his mistakes and improved their techniques. The Shibani case didn't end a criminal enterprise. It provided a blueprint for improving criminal enterprises. And this raises the most disturbing questions of all. How many other invisible criminal empires are operating right now in your city, in your neighborhood, possibly on your street? How many people with unexplained wealth are living lives funded by sophisticated criminal operations that law enforcement hasn't even discovered yet? And most importantly, how many vulnerabilities in our financial, legal, and digital systems are still waiting to be exploited by the next generation of criminals who learned from Shibani's successes and failures? The truth is, we don't know. And that's what makes this case so terrifying. If these questions fascinate and terrify you as much as they do me, Crime Scene Chronicles is definitely the channel for you. Make sure you're subscribed for more deep dives into cases that reveal the hidden realities of modern crime. Hit that like button if this investigation has changed your perspective, and share this video because everyone needs to understand these threats. But there's one final aspect of this case that we need to discuss. Something that makes all of these technical and financial crimes feel deeply personal and tragically human. Because behind every sophisticated criminal operation, there are real victims whose lives have been destroyed by the very systems that were supposed to protect them. Behind every criminal empire, there are victims whose stories never make the headlines. Shibani's £5 million drug operation didn't exist in a vacuum. It contributed to addiction, destroyed families, funded violence, and corrupted communities. The luxury lifestyle he maintained came at the cost of countless lives destroyed by the drugs he helped distribute. But the victims of Shibani's operation extend far beyond the people who used his drugs. Think about the families who were outbid on homes because Shibani was artificially inflating real estate markets with dirty money. Think about the legitimate businesses that couldn't compete with criminal enterprises that had access to unlimited illegal funding. Think about the young people in communities where Shibani's drug network operated, who grew up seeing criminal success as the only path to wealth and prosperity. The financial institutions Shibani defrauded didn't just absorb those losses. They passed them on to legitimate customers through higher fees, stricter requirements, and reduced services. Every time a criminal successfully defrauds a bank, honest customers pay the price. Even his own family became casualties of his operation. His mother's arrest at Manchester Airport represents the destruction of family relationships and the extension of criminal consequences to people who may have started as innocent victims. But perhaps the most tragic victims of all are the people who will be harmed by future criminal operations that use techniques perfected by Shibani. Because every successful criminal operation becomes a template for future criminals. Every vulnerability that gets exploited becomes a roadmap for exploitation by others. Shibani's sophisticated document forgery techniques are now being used by identity thieves targeting ordinary citizens. His cryptocurrency laundering methods are being replicated by criminal organizations around the world. His strategies for avoiding detection are being taught in criminal networks that most law enforcement agencies don't even know exist. This is what makes cases like Shibani's so complex and tragic. The sophistication of the operation is genuinely impressive from a technical standpoint. The decade-long deception demonstrates remarkable planning and execution abilities. But all of that intelligence and capability was directed toward activities that caused immeasurable harm to countless individuals and communities. And this brings us to the final lesson of the Shibani case. The same technologies that enable amazing advances in legitimate finance, communication, and commerce also enable criminal enterprises of unprecedented sophistication and scale. The blockchain technology that makes cryptocurrency possible also makes cryptocurrency laundering possible. The digital identity systems that make online commerce convenient also make identity theft more profitable. The encrypted communication tools that protect privacy also protect criminal conspiracies. We live in a world where the tools of progress and the tools of destruction are often identical. The challenge facing all of us, law enforcement, financial institutions, technology companies, and ordinary citizens, is learning to maximize the benefits while minimizing the risks. The Shibani case shows us both the promise and the peril of our technological age. It demonstrates both human ingenuity and human depravity. It reveals both the vulnerabilities in our systems and the resilience of our institutions. Most importantly, it reminds us that in the battle between criminals and the communities they prey upon, vigilance is the price of safety. The story of Shibani is ultimately a mirror reflecting the world we've created. A world where someone can live in complete financial invisibility while maintaining a luxury lifestyle. A world where criminal empires can operate undetected for decades. A world where the same technologies that improve our lives also enable sophisticated criminal enterprises. Shibani's 37-year prison sentence and the ongoing pursuit of his assets send a clear message: eventually, even the most sophisticated criminals get caught. But his decade of successful operation sends an equally clear message: our systems are not as secure as we believe them to be. The techniques Shibani perfected are still out there. The vulnerabilities he exploited still exist. The criminal networks he connected to are still operating. As we've seen throughout this investigation, the Shibani case raises more questions than it answers. And that's exactly why cases like this matter. They force us to confront uncomfortable realities about the world we live in and the threats we face. For Crime Scene Chronicles, we've taken you deep into one of the most sophisticated criminal operations of our time. If you found this investigation compelling and terrifying, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Give this video a like if it's changed how you see the world around you, and please share it with someone who needs to understand these threats, because cases like this are exactly what we do here. What do you think? Was Shibani a criminal mastermind who got unlucky, or was he just the tip of an iceberg that law enforcement is still trying to understand? Are you more concerned about the criminals who got caught, or the ones who are still out there using his techniques? Let me know in the comments below, and if this video has opened your eyes to threats you didn't know existed, make sure to like and share it. Remember, the person living in the mansion down the street with no visible source of income might not be as legitimate as they appear. Stay vigilant. Stay informed. And remember, in the modern world, the greatest threats are often hiding in plain sight. Thanks for joining me on this investigation, and I'll see you in the next case.